And now I'm delighted to be able to introduce our first speaker who will share with us her lived experience. It's Saxon Mullins, who, as you know, is a survivor and anti-violence advocate. As the mother of a 19-year-old young woman myself, I watched Four Corners and I Am That Girl with a mix of stunned shock and horror about the life of young women in our cities, but with a sense of awe about the young woman who was putting herself into the public realm with her story so bravely and honestly. Her story, I Am That Girl, that was shown on Four Corners earlier this year, was absolutely instrumental in the review of sexual consent laws in New South Wales and advocacy for law reform in other jurisdictions this year. She also topped the Australian Financial Review's magazine's 2018 Cultural Power List for her important role in bringing about cultural change in this country. An amazing feat. That's the Fin Review. Its measurement of the most significant cultural player in this country this year, and it was Saxon Mullins. She's also has been shortlisted for a 2018 Young Person's Human Rights Medal, and the journalists who told her story won the 2018 Walkley Award for Public Service Journalism only last week. Today, she's on the front page of the Sydney Morning Herald, telling the stories that sit behind the NCAS. Would you please make welcome Saxon Mullins.
Thank you. I've had a lot of awkward moments, the instances of which have gone up exponentially since I came forward with my story. The subject of being on TV comes up and someone says, "Oh, why were you on TV?" Or I profess my undying love for the ABC. So I find myself explaining my story a lot because the Venn diagram of people I have these conversations with and people who have seen Four Corners are just two circles really far apart. So for those of you in the other circle of my Venn diagram, when I was 18, I was sexually assaulted behind a nightclub in Sydney's King's Cross. It's been more than 5 years since that happened, but those words still sound weird coming out of my mouth because I never thought I would be someone who was sexually assaulted. I had my first kiss at 17. How could I get myself into a situation where this could happen? But to believe that this could never happen to me, I first had to believe that it was partly the victim's fault. I had to believe that people get themselves into situations where sexual assault happens. And I did. I did believe that. And maybe I wasn't alone. 13% of Australians believe that if a woman is raped while she is drunk or under the influence of drugs, she is partly to blame. 31% think that a lot of times women who say they were raped had led the men on and then had regrets. Of course, I thought that men shouldn't rape women and it was bad if they did. But I also thought there were steps you could take. An easy how not to guideline for living without fear of being sexually assaulted. But the more you read and research and listen and live, the more you realise you can't live without the fear, because it's everywhere. Women are more likely to be raped by someone they know than a stranger. 1 in 3 Australians is unaware of this fact. The awareness of this hasn't changed since 2013 and has gone down since 2009 and 1995. I don't want to scare you, but I was born in 1995. I know it feels like yesterday. It feels like yesterday, except that it wasn't yesterday. It was more than 20 years ago. And the fact that there are issues around sexual violence and consent that we still don't understand is depressing. So, when women are being assaulted in their homes and out of them, by people they know, overwhelmingly, and by strangers, what's next? I think I have 2 suggestions for this. I know there's more than 2, but I think I have 2. The first is listening to women. I cannot articulate how much it meant to me to be believed by the Australian public. I was pretty nervous about how people would react to my story, and I was so relieved at the reaction that I got. At the same time, I recognise why I got that reaction, why I was believed. I fit into the perfect victim mould. It was hard to find the usual shortcomings because I did all the right things. It's easy to digest because he was a stranger. It doesn't make you think too hard about societal views because he wasn't a partner or a friend. I'm forever grateful for the kindness and the empathy that I was shown. So I ask you to remember that kindness and that empathy and to extend it to the women who come forward now. I ask you to remember that there isn't one path to healing, and all survivors and all people react to things differently. I ask you to remember that my story is in many ways the exception. My other suggestion involves a bit of help. Those more likely to have lower support for gender equality and higher attitudinal support for violence against women are men. I know that we have fantastic allies in men, and I'm so thankful, but we need you to be loud, really loud. Men listen to other men, so we need you to be on constant alert. We need you to be calling out sexism, calling out jokes, telling your friends and families and co-workers what behaviours are okay and what behaviours are not okay. And I know, it sounds like a lot of work, because it's a lot of work. And I'm tired, but it's too important to give up. People always talk about what they would do if they had a time machine. They would go back and they would change the world. But your actions have just as much impact right now. Everything you do has a ripple effect, and you get to decide if that is good or if it's bad. So let's start today. I've created a new time machine. It takes us forward, propelled by our actions, into the world we deserve. In fact, we're in it right now. So you tell me, where are we going?
Thank you, Saxon. You are remarkable, and your voice is a clarion call to all of us. And I think you've left us with some very clear messages, the women and men, all of us as a community, and you've given us a chance to be better. And by throwing us into that time machine that is now, and I'm hoping that the NCAS work will help us get there as quickly as we can so that your advocacy hits its mark and we see a big change. I think we should thank Saxon again for all that she does.